The last lesson, an introduction. This simple, sentimental story, written around 150 years ago, still has some important lessons for people in the 21st century.
In this introduction, we shall talk about the author, the historical background of the story, and its plot and main themes. An unsuccessful school teacher turned writer, Rodin's life was never easy. Born in Nîmes to a silk manufacturer, he had a depressing childhood, an even more depressing first stint as a teacher, and his initial efforts at writing were far from well received. After a great deal of criticism, eventually he found success, and his books are still read today. However, his main claim to fame is as a writer of sentimental fiction about life in the south of France. The historical context of this story is extremely relevant. Alsace-Lorraine, a region, now a French territory, located right on the French-German border, has been a major factor in the long conflict between the two nations. For this reason, the people have always regarded themselves as essentially French. Nonetheless, Germany had always believed it has a geographical claim over the region, and therefore, between 1871 and 1945, the region has passed to and from German and French hands repeatedly. In the last lesson, the writer describes an incident which occurred soon after the Franco Prussian War, when the French speaking territory became subject to German control for the first time in 1871. The Germans, perhaps sensing that the language that the people of this area shared with France would always make them feel closer to France, decided to replace the teaching of French in the schools of Alsace-Lorraine with the teaching of German. This is what forms the crux of the plot of the last lesson.
These are the famous orders from Berlin mentioned in the story. The title. The title, The Last Lesson of refers obviously to the last class taught by the French teacher Monsieur Hamel before he left the school forever to be replaced by a German master. At the same time, it refers to the lesson learned by the people of Alsace-Lorraine, who had never really taken their language, their mother tongue, very seriously. A tendency which exists to this day among people all over the world who are inclined to treat the language spoken commonly in their community, in their family, very casually, without investing much interest in its study, without realizing its value until an incident happens, as it does in the story, where that language is forcibly taken away from. So, in sum, Monsieur Hamel's last lesson is an expression of regret for everybody. While the whole town turns up to attend Monsieur Hamel's last lesson, including the old men and the community leaders, the teacher's dramatic speech serves to remind all of them that while the evil Germans may be taking away their language by force, they too have not always given it the respect that it deserves. The key themes of this lesson are language and identity. Language is a unifying force. The importance of respecting one's language and culture, and the unfairness and ultimate futility of linguistic chauvinism, or trying to force others to adopt your language and culture because you happen to be in political or military control. So, a brief summary before the actual reading of the story. The story is told from the point of view of young Franz, a little boy who, like all children, has little love for school and learning. He would rather stay out in the open and avoid being disciplined by the French teacher, Monsieur Hamel, for not learning his participles and being late for class. As he heads half-heartedly to school, he notices a large crowd gathered at the town square but doesn't pay much attention. However, when he reaches his school, he is surprised, first at the unexpected silence and then at the unexpected scene inside the classroom, where the old men of the town have gathered to attend the French teacher's class. Another surprise for little Franz is the teacher's time to learn their own language, and the teacher who thought the Prussians have forbidden the teaching of French in Alsace-Lorraine. Will the children of the region ever be able to learn their own language properly? Or will the Prussians be able to force them to speak German? This is a regret shared by many. The village elders who thought their children would be more useful at work than school, the children who thought they had a lifetime to learn their own language, and the teacher who thought pretty much the same thing and didn't do his job quite as sincerely as he should have. And now it's simply too late. In the end, Monsieur Hamel is unable to go on, choked up with sentiment. He's only able to turn to the blackboard and write, Vive la France, long live France. But his last lesson has already made a difference. It has made France realize that just as the Germans cannot make the pigeons sing in German, they cannot make the people of Alsace-Lorraine speak in German.